And so with that, we will now move on to our next panel. So this is with Mustafa Azizi of Zuum Transportation and John Trieu of Holman Growth Ventures. And Mustafa and John, welcome.
How's it going?
Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you guys. Mustafa, why don't we start with you and provide a little background. What is Zuum?
So Zuum is a logistics super platform. We focus on connecting freight brokers, manufacturers, and trucking companies together on one global platform. We address the problem in two ways. A lot of people focus on the data, but we don't only focus on the data, but we focus on the physical transactions between the three stakeholders. And we do something unique in that we help our stakeholders automate their back offices. We found that there's a lot of inefficiencies, even if you have the nicest platforms and fragmented systems in the actual back offices. So we'd like to look at ourselves as the first company to essentially put, like, there's a lot of companies that are basically starting to say, hey, I'm the Uber of this or the Uber of that. We're the first company to actually white label that model and bring Uber freight in a box to actual manufacturers and brokerages.
Awesome.
Yep.
And John, I'd love for you to provide brief background on Holman and Holman Growth Ventures as well.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. So Holman is a 100-year-old company. And so our primary modes of business are fleet management and automotive retail. And if you think about automotive in the last 80, 90 years, it's not really changed much. And we haven't innovated that much. And we recognize that. So with the foresight of our leaders, we recognize that we need to innovate as well. So a few years ago, they started an innovations lab called Holman Strategic Ventures, where we would start up companies, but also invest in companies. Holman Growth Ventures came out of that. And our charge and our mandate is to really invest in companies that would help improve our efficiencies or develop new revenue lines for us, but also expand our core. And so from that, we've developed a very strategic element to our investing. And so we want to make sure that we structure it in a, we win, you win alignment, so that we're incentivized to help the companies that we invest in succeed as much as possible. And in so doing, we can help Holman prepare for the next 100 years.
Fantastic. So I'd love to hear about when you guys first met and how the investment process went along between the two of you guys.
We met on MySpace.
Yeah. You want to start, Mustafa?
Yeah, sure. So we're based in Southern California, and as you guys know, we're a plug and play portfolio company, and we get invites every so often to meet a corporate. And then we happen to be in San Francisco, and John and his logistics team was actually in San Francisco, and they were just learning about plug and play. And I got invited to one of the deal flows, and then we got in, and then I didn't even know who was in the room or what stakeholders there were. So I just started going to my normal pitch, and one thing led to another. Then I went into a deep relationship with John and his team, and he audited the heck out of me in terms of going through all our cohorted and financial. And next thing you knew, we were a portfolio company within maybe a month or so. And then now we're working on inroads to actually become because of COVID, obviously, we had some delays on our pilot, but this was an investment first pilot opportunity. Some of our other, we have about 8 to 10 corporates invested in us as well. Some of those happen to be pilots first, then investments. But with John and his team, they really believed in our model. And now we're working to have inroads into the pilot. What was cool about the meeting when we had in person was that John could validate a lot of the stuff because a couple of the head of logistics was in the same room. So I think that's where it started, right, John? Did I get that about right?
Yeah, well, the head of our strategic ventures, so, very entrepreneurial minded individual. Someone strategically key in helping figure out what the organization needs to look like in the future. Yeah, so he was there with me, and also our chief IT officer as well was there.
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, I love how these things happen, and just the surprise of relationships. So this started when I went to CES, and I met Taylor at one of the booths, and then Taylor and I hit it off and kept in contact with me. I just so happened, we're based in Philadelphia, and so I just so happened to be out on my way to a conference out in Monterey, and that Taylor was heading out to as well, called GCVI. And so decided to just stop in on Plug and Play, see what they were all about, because I'd heard good things and it just sounded so cool. While there, we were supposed to meet with several startups, but once we got on with Mo and his team, that 10-minute turned into our entire time. So we actually only met Mo that time, but we were so impressed and intrigued. And it really was a lot of stuff that we'd been thinking about already, that Mo and his team were solving. So it just was this nice first date and marriage later on, if you will. So yeah, the surprise of relationships.
Small world.
Yeah. And John, from your side, what do you look for in a founder when you're evaluating for an investment opportunity?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and that's a huge challenge because oftentimes when you work with seed and early stage startups, and for all the investors in here, we go by such little information. But our process and what we look for in a founder are a few things. So first of all, from the first pitch, we look for a mastery of what they're talking about. So have they properly identified the problem here? Can they teach us something? And in so doing, I mean, you're not in this business, you're not an investor in this type of business if you're not a learner, if you're not curious. And so we like to learn a lot. And so if you can teach us something, even better. And if you tell us something that we don't know or give us additional insight into something that we've already looked into, then that shows the mastery of the problem you're trying to solve. The other thing we look for is, and this is hard to quantify, but obsessiveness. People say love, passion, but I look for obsessiveness, and someone who is going to, through the valley of sorrow of startups and just through the setbacks, still be so obsessed about solving this problem and energized about doing it. And we saw that in Mo. We saw that he was passionate about the problem and making something world-class, and we believed in him. So we decided to invest.
Great. And then I'd also love to hear just a little bit about reference checks and how both you guys kind of work through the diligence process on both sides of getting to know each other, because I know the whole process happened relatively quickly.
Yeah, I can start with that.
Sure.
So for us, we have a 3 major step diligence process, and just with background checks. I mean, we talk to a lot of folks in our network. Do you know this person? Do you know that person? We troll LinkedIn a lot. We look at social media as well, just to make sure, do we know someone in common? Do we trust that person? So we rely on that, but also we pilot. We want to make sure that it works and that it works for a specific use case. The other thing we do is we have something called a beat it up meeting. And so we invite the important business leaders in our company to just sit around the table, and we just say, okay, call the baby ugly. Let's just talk about what this company does, what we think about our interaction with them so far, how the pilot is going. And then we just try to beat it up as much as possible. If it can get through that, we come out of it with a lot of questions, but if it can get through that and create a safe space for just really robust conversations, then it's a good sign, because we know that we can start developing internally roadmaps, but we can also start bringing in alignment internally. And then outside of that, what we do is, I'll be honest here, we ask tough questions, and we ask for a lot of information. And so doing, in that process of doing so, we can see how the founder and the founding team reacts. We can see how timely they are in their information, how they articulate back to you. So the process of actually asking for information is part of our diligence as well. And so my associate and I always do a postmortem afterward, after these calls and after data dumps. How was your experience? What did you learn? What were your takeaways from that? So, you know, it's hard doing good diligence, but and getting to know someone and putting some money behind them. But it's a fun process as well.
Yeah, from our perspective, the thing was that Holman was actually referred to us. So the fact that it came in as a referral, it made it a lot easier for us to progress together. And that always softens it up. There's so many relationships and we have with corporates, like we're funded by people like Estes, the chief marketing officer of Coca-Cola, BNSF, and a lot of our big customers that we're working with, like Tyson Foods or Home Depot or General Motors or Hyundai right now. A lot of these people just came in through a referral. And anytime we get an opportunity where John wants to do like a due diligence reference check with us, we try to spin it back on him and try to bring in one of our partners that we're already doing business with to strengthen his network and show him that we're not only here to give you answers to validate what you're asking us, but we're here to also strengthen your network. Because one of the core value propositions we have at Zuum is to build a global ecosystem where everybody can collaborate and help each other on their plight of whatever challenges they have. Another thing for us, when it was really important that when John would come with a list of questions, that we respond to him in a quick manner and make sure that we articulate it in a succinct way that he sees that we truly understand the problem. And we try to dive a little bit deeper than the question he gave to us. So even though we're a company in seed, we try to answer like a Series B company to him. Does that make sense, John? Do you feel like we did that?
I do. And, you know, especially, I mean, you guys were really responsive and patient with us as we conducted our diligence. But also, what we were really impressed by was that you also really thought about the value you could add to us and introduced us to a lot of folks. So it just felt like a great partnership from the get-go.
Yeah, and it continues to grow today. It's all about the law of synergy for us.
Great. And so, John, I want to ask you this question that was asked in the Q&A for Gopal, but we didn't get to it. So in your current role, what is the single most important factor when trying to win over internal stakeholders at Holman? And then how do you convince the Holman execs to take on the associated risk as a 100-year-old company?
Yeah, that's a great company. So I think a lot of the work has to happen beforehand. And so you need to lay the groundwork. When I first joined, around this time last year, actually, the first thing I did was I dated a lot of the senior execs in the firm. And I asked them, you know, what their expectations were, what they wanted out of this group and out of our investments. So I got to know them a lot. And then our associate, Heather, has worked for 11 years in Holman as well. And so she has a greater network. So pairing me, someone from the outside, with someone who really knew the ins and outs of the organization was a great first step. So we laid a lot of the groundwork beforehand so that when the time came, I could connect all the feedback that I've received from everyone with this investment opportunity. And even so, we took it a step farther. And so, you know, we do our beat up the idea meetings, but we actually, if we like something enough, in the case of Zuum here, we will actually restructure our operations around it. And so afterward, what we've done is, you know, part of COVID created an opportunity. So we created a task force where we were mandated with, you know, imagining what Holman would look like for the next mid to short term, so 3 to 5 years. And in doing that, we could say, you know what, we have very disparate logistics plays right now. We can centralize that because the technology and the investment in Zuum presents an opportunity and a chance for us to do that now. And so we are in process of doing that. And so if you think about, just the whole process of investing, finding this technology, it was first identifying that problem that we had first, finding that solution, and then being entrepreneurial enough to get stakeholders involved, and then going a step further in terms of, are we willing to even alter our operations around this? So we're going very far on this, and we're really excited about it. So more to come on that.
Great. And as we wrap up this discussion, I guess I just want to hear, Mo, how do you plan on leveraging Holmen's ecosystem? And you're kind of the master of leveraging plug and play. So how do you plan on leveraging Holmen?
Well, number one, everything that we base our core philosophy of our company on is integrity and bringing value, but more like literally. So we feel that if we bring value and integrity to Holmen will see us as a partner and ultimately be motivated to kind of be the champion of us leveraging their ecosystem. And also, you don't want to be needy, right? You don't want to just like, hey, I need you. So what I've been doing is like John said, I've been connecting him with the chief marketing officer of Coca-Cola, bringing the largest trucking company in America. Any contacts I have, I try to swing back to John to see how his network could strengthen. Then he's like, they're not needy, right? Like, even if you want to find a wife and you're super needy, then you'll never get her. So you have to bring value to the table, like Jim Rohn said, so that's really important for us. The second thing is, if you guys go to our website and check out our page called Accelerate, we took a page out of Plug and Play's book and building our own innovation hub where we partner with corporations, startups, and investors and try to kind of build a flywheel of partners that we could aggregate and bring back to Plug and Play and Holmen as their future customers and clients. So in a way, it's like show the love right back and have that law of synergy work hand in hand. That's pretty much the main ways. Other than that, it's like, one piece of great advice I've learned is with corporations, some of them move fast and they like, okay, I want to invest. And then they move into a pilot and then you're already generating revenue. But then some corporations like with Logifruit and Holmen that invest in us, they have some organizational restructuring, especially with COVID-19 coming through, that they move a little bit slower on the pilot. So patience is virtue. Then some other corporations, you're already into the pilot and the investment might come through. Like this morning, I got a call from Robert Ware of General Motors. And like, I thought that the pilot was going to be so slow and that the investment with GM Ventures was going to be quick. But he called me this morning. He's like, we're going to do a pilot real quick and then the investment will come down the line. So basically mitigating the waters and understanding who your audience is, and consistently after every call you have with them, you have to walk away with an action item and when the next meeting will be. For example, with Walmart, we've been talking to Mandy and OT and their team for like almost a year, but patience is virtue. And we got another call tomorrow and I'm hoping that we can get to the pilot stage. Does that answer the question or did I sidestep it?
That's a great answer. Well, Mustafa and John, we're out of time, but thank you for participating in the panel. I thought it was really fascinating.
Hey, one thing, Taylor, I just want to say from all the startups and all the corporates, we really appreciate Plug and Play and we appreciate the corporates joining the ecosystem. Without you guys, we would be nowhere. So thank you so much.
I second that wholeheartedly.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you, Mustafa, for the kind words.